All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I just want to do a quick sound check. Is audio and video working okay for everyone?
Yep, you're coming through great.
Miracle. Okay, so welcome everybody to our final interim meeting before we all convene in Montreal in a couple of weeks' time. So let me see, do I have control, Justin, of the slides?
You do now. I just had to find the button.
Thank you. All right, so welcome everybody to the WIMSE interim. This is again our final interim before Montreal, and just as per usual, everything we do here is covered by IETF practices and procedures. Also, please remember to be kind to one another, and then maybe very quickly, just the agenda for today. Quick welcome, and then the topic for today is the workload to workload discussion, or the continuation of the workload to workload discussions as a follow-on to the interim that we had 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I believe, Brian, you had some slides that you would like to present. Is that correct?
Yes, I will.
All right. While they're getting that set up, just a reminder to everybody, unless you are presenting or actively asking a question, please keep your mic and your video off. And please join the queue when you would like to. I'm trying to. Peter, hold on. I need to take back control from Peter and then hand it to Brian. There we go. Yay, technology. It's great. So anyway, yes, please join the queue for asking any questions. And does anybody have, is anybody willing to help take notes for this interim? I see an arrow pointing at Arndt, so I'm assuming that's a volunteering.
Okay, I guess.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna keep the notes tab open too, and I'll help you out. With that, take it away, Brian.
Nicely manipulated, Justin. Well done. Okay, interim on WIMSE workload to workload authentication. The interim last week, some of you may have noted my surprise at realizing this document was back up on the agenda for the interim here. So we somewhat hastily threw together a very small set of slides to talk about some things today, and that is what you're gonna see me talk about today. That was a lot of words to not say much. This is a raccoon from Montreal, and of course there is the arrow volunteering Arndt for the job I didn't know he was going to be volunteered for. Sorry about that. Next slide, which I'll say is, oh, that's what I was saying. The OKRs here basically are, we had an interim scheduled some time ago. And like I said, much to my shock and dismay, workload to workload was on there with preparation for a working group last call. Some things have transpired in the interim since that interim and this other interim. And that is that we had a pretty lengthy discussion, I think about a month ago, regarding the structuring and effective MTI of this work. And I wrote a little poem here to try to express it, and also pointed out that Peter and Justin have weighed in without their hats on a consensus call regarding sorry, I'm struggling for the words, a consensus call regarding the structure of the various components in this document. And we had a number of people actually weigh in on that, but best I can tell, we are more or less kind of at a standstill until we get further direction from the output of this consensus call on what to do with the structuring of the documents. And that is a polite yet somewhat passive aggressive way to throw it back at the chairs here, in that I think we really are stuck short of proceeding blind as we've been doing for some time now, and or actually like getting a call from you guys regarding the call for consensus. So many calls there. My sense was, well, maybe I shouldn't even do that because I did read it. I was going to say my sense just to prove that I did read them all, but I won't insert my interpretation in here. And yeah, good poem, fun pictures. I'm going to go one more, and then it looks like Justin's popping in.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Are you officially asking the chairs to make a call regarding the outcome of that thread?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. We can weigh in with hats on at some point here, but please continue.
Yeah, well, that's really it. I guess I'm either asking for like a call on the consensus and or other nudging or suggestions about what we really should be doing next. And that leads me to just the obligatory closing slide here. That is in Montreal. We'll see hopefully many of you in less than a month. And noting too that the associated ID submission cutoff is less than a week away. Although some of these draft structurings have, yeah, that's all I got. Like I said, we sort of threw this together hastily and discussed amongst ourselves what would be useful bit of this use of this time, and really it's I'm not sure we can accomplish much outside of like trying to address this question. So I'm going to stop rambling, hand it back to Justin, and or it looks like Hannes is in queue.
Yeah, this was a little bit nebulous to me. And I was wondering, what is the disconnect among the authors on why they got to a standstill? And also, thank you, Justin. And also, are all the authors actually here on the call to discuss this?
It looks like, I'm looking at the participant list right now. It looks like no. Joseph and Arndt, as well as myself, are here. Yaron is not. My rough understanding is that he was on holiday for a maybe not a European level extended holiday, but a long holiday, and has not been heard from much recently. That said, the consensus call did go out, I think, prior to his absence, and he did weigh in on it. The disconnect, at least from my perspective, is a fundamental disagreement about what is necessary and or sufficient to accomplish the goal of workload to workload authentication. With we tried to delve into a lot of the details at the last interim, but really it comes down to selecting the use of a technology, either a JOT-based thing sort of on top of HTTP or an HTTP signature profile that's also on top of HTTP, but is there, and whether one is like many things, there's trade-offs and complications and different opinions, but at least I am firmly in the camp that the JOT-based approach is simpler, more deployable, and totally sufficient for purpose, while Yaron is much more of the belief that the HTTP signature profile is necessary to accomplish what is a requirement in his mind that that intermediaries be protected against with a full application of integrity protection on the body. And we're basically at a I'm struggling for the right metaphor, an impasse on that, and have been, honestly, since the very, very early points of this document, have brought it to the working group a couple of times. The first time, the answer we got at the meeting was largely just, it's okay, go forward with all of the approaches. The more recent request for some direction or clarity resulted in, again, lots of different opinions about which would be preferable and necessary, but ultimately came to this question of structuring the documents, because, at least from my perception, there is not a clear, even rough consensus that one or the other approach is totally sufficient. Sorry, my dog is barking. I don't know how good the noise canceling is. Like, it just doesn't seem like there's a clear, even rough consensus that one or the other is the winner. So it kind of comes down to then whether we keep it all in one document, more or less as it is now, or split it up into multiple documents in what seems like a reasonable division of the different pieces and parts that doesn't really take away the question of one or the other, but treats them independently. Yes, it is. Now I'm just seeing the comments. I do appreciate it. Not a whippet, unfortunately, and I'm not in Lake Wobegon. I rambled a lot, Hannes. Hopefully that there was some answers in the middle of that rambling.
And that was helpful for me. Thanks a lot.
I don't have anything specific, but I wanted to actually throw the conversation back to the chairs on what's the results of the consensus call.
Maybe appropriate.
All right, so Peter and I were back channeling. What we're going to do is we're both going to carefully reread the thread, because my memory of it was that there was a lot of discussion and not really a single clear winner, at least in that thread. So Peter and I are going to reread all of that together and discuss sort of what the overall direction for next steps of the working group is. I will say that that part of my read of that is agreeing with Brian that there's not a single clear winner. The working group was not like chanting in unison that, yes, let's go do this one thing and run off to that. I also want to bring up a really important point regarding things that the IETF publishes, and the way I had it explained to me is that the IETF is not here to pick market winners. And we do have to be careful that we're not saying like, oh, we should do this because we feel like the market is going to go in this direction. We should, however, be looking at trends, be looking at where we think technology is going in order to make the best technological decision. So this is something that we as a working group do need to balance and do need to make sure that we're actually, working on together as a group. All that said, this is fundamentally a more of a structure than a content issue. Since there are proponents of each of the pieces, the real question is, do we put them together? Do we pull them apart? If we pull them apart, how do we pull them apart? And that's something that Peter and I need to basically dig through the comments and see what the trends are, and we can give that guidance back to the authors after we get some time to sit down and chew on this a little bit. Peter, you're muted. You're muted in Meet Echo.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, I think, to the authors, I think, Justin, I think we need to get back by the end of this week so that folks can start with the teasing apart of work potentially. But I agree. I think the different solutions have different properties that are attractive under different circumstances. I think there is a set of work where, and I think we're not in the, I agree that we're not in the business of necessarily picking, market winners, etc. Right? That's for the market to decide which of these tools is going to be most appropriate for specific deployments. And so I think with that, let's make that commitment to get a decision by the end of the week. And essentially, this is about structure. It's not about which work progresses. It's simply, I think, by creating a different structure, we can allow different work to progress at different speed.
Right, exactly. One of the considerations that we have as chairs is that, is somebody willing to do a particular piece of work beyond just, does the working group think that this is something we ought to be doing in general? It seems like in this case, it's pretty clear that there are people that are invested in the different parts of work. So I would really like to see us have the right people on each piece and have the right coordination between, whether this is all coordination within a single document or coordination between multiple documents and how those are split or whatever. That's what we need to figure out. So I would encourage anybody who has opinions on that, we can discuss them now, but also if you have an opinion, join that thread on the list. Let me grab the title of that. I just had it open. Oh gosh.
It's actually right there in my little screen cap.
There it is. Workload to workload document structure.
You can even see the Gemini summary of the thread there. If you guys don't want to read through it, it's not helpful, but
yeah.
Just on that comment, Justin, I do think amongst the author group, we have interest in completing the document or the documents in whatever form might come out of this. So I don't think there's concern about stuff not getting done as a result of a split. I think there's sufficient interest to write those or structure them however is deemed appropriate.
Yeah, I think so. And I have also been taking note of a collaborative spirit in spite of differences, which is really important to, moving work healthily forward. And I really appreciate that. Just want to publicly say I really appreciate that about this group. I've been involved in other working groups where that was not something that we generally had. Brian is nodding because he was also in those working groups.
Strongly agree with that sentiment.
And so yeah, this is my gut is telling me that this is largely going to be a mechanical question, not dissimilar to the mechanical question, which by the by is currently out on the list regarding the architecture document and the identifier document. If you haven't jumped in on that thread, please do so, because that is also open right now. Anyway, yeah, Peter and I can commit to having a decision on that by the end of the week, and guidance to the authors for kind of how to do this. I do see Arndt in the queue.
Yeah, taking into account that the deadline for submission is Monday, I also want to ask what's the sort of timeline we're thinking of, because this is the last big decision of this draft, and we were actually hoping to get this done by Montreal and not after Montreal.
That is oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I feel like my opinion would differ if I know that this, like, let's say we decide by the end of this week that we're going to split the documents, right? Which would mean we can, at the earliest, go to a working group last call or an adoption call even, right, for the new documents after Montreal or at Montreal. So like this whole thing would delay things even further, in my opinion. So I kind of would hope, or I hoped we could come to a decision today, or at least within the next days, so the authors have enough time to make the preparation for Montreal. Yeah. Sorry.
That's a great question. I would, if the decision is to do restructuring, then I would, and the authors don't feel that they have time ahead of the draft cutoff, I would encourage them to do the edits in the interim and make them available even if they're not available on Data Tracker. And then this can be a primary topic for us in Montreal to decide, is this the direction that we're going? I'm not really concerned about us going through formal adoption and all of this other stuff, because we've kind of already made that, we will have already really made that decision. And then it's just a lot of that is kind of mechanical at that point. Also, remember, if you want things done quickly, don't come to a standards organization. With that note, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. So, so a couple of comments, right? So when we set the initial date for working group last call and being ready by Montreal, or having it done before Montreal, that was prior to the option of even splitting the documents was being discussed. Right. And I think, Brian, you specifically requested 17 interims so that we can actually get to it, figure out what we need to do to get to working group last call. So at this point, I think, yes, we do want to finish it. The restructuring of the documents to me is something we did not know we were going to contemplate, or at least I was not thinking that we were going to go that way when we set the initial dates, right? And so I think in terms of the quality of the documents and the deliverables, we have to allow for more time, right? I think just taking the documents and throwing things out, there's going to be some editorial work, right, having had to restructure documents on occasion, right? I think so. I think let's not use the date to create bad work. The fact that things changed, right, or we are now in a slightly different place than we thought we would be, that's fine. So it'll take a little bit longer, but I think the goal should still be there to finish this as quickly as possible. I think in terms of the call for adoption, my sense is we're not introducing any new work. Right. It is just how, I don't feel like we have others who are more familiar with IETF protocol and process can point this out to me, but my sense is the work's already, we've already decided as a working group that we want this work. We're now deciding we're going to structure it differently for various practical reasons to allow it to progress. And so I don't think we are going to go back to calls for adoption. I don't know, Justin, your sense, call for consensus.
I think we have basically done a call for consensus, and you and I need to choose what the working group has roughly decided.
Rough consensus, yes.
Exactly. And so I do not anticipate us having an additional round of consensus, more of a heads up, this is what the doc looks like now. And then if the authors after that say, hey, we did whatever rearrangement or surgery or splitting or whatever we need to do, no, we would not need adoption if there's a split, because it's not adopting new work to call for Brian's thing there, because we're not adopting new work. So the call for adoption for the identifier draft is very specifically more of a call for consensus for the structural change. Fun fact, the chairs in the working group can just on their own decide to do that. There is not a formal requirement for that within IETF, but it's good to make sure that we all agree that that's what's going on. This is based on my experience with having split and combined and split again the OAuth dynamic registration document, which was a particularly messy situation that I don't want to replicate here. So I'd like to see us pick a direction and stick with it. Anyway, that was a very rambly answer to say that I don't think we need another formal call per IETF procedure, but we do need to, declare and record the consensus here.
Okay. I have a question for the authors. Brian, maybe you can, as the person speaking on behalf of the authors today, is there a particular split that you think is impractical or would not work, right? If we're going to decide on splitting things, is there a bad split or a split of things that you think is unhelpful potentially?
Put me on the spot there a little bit, which is appropriate, but as I stumble over my words, I think that the general feeling is either we would prefer either to stay the course in a single document or have what would you think of as like an equitable split, where each of the components are treated equally, if that, not components. Does that make any sense? I'm stumbling over my words.
So to me, the question is more, what are the components? Like where are the lines? Not necessarily what's done with what's within those boundaries.
Yeah, so I think the wit is one component. The whippet is another component. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The wit is sort of like the identity component. And then the whippet and the HTTP signatures are each independent components that are a proof or a presentation mechanism. So I see 3 distinct documents there. I do believe, and I'm glad Joseph or Joe, I don't know why, just joined the queue, that treatment of mutual TLS is a bit of a cross-cutting thing in the document now and might still be, and I'm not sure how to treat that in that split. So those 3 is how I would envision it. We'd have to figure out what to do with mutual TLS.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I can say better.
I would
Go
just
ahead,
say within mutual TLS, we could either split it out into a separate document on using these type of credentials with workloads or something, or you could maybe construe it could go in with the WIT document, since it would be about workload credentials, and the TLS portion is pretty small compared to the other kind of proof of possession things. But I think that's something we could maybe do maybe we could do a test and see what it looks like if we split it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, aren't you already did a bit of a split, right? But not the TLS side as well. My sense of it is the logical things here is there is credential formats, X509 and WITs, and then there is presentations, and that's HTTP SIG, WIPIT, and MTLS, right? Those are different ways in which the credentials gets used, and that's a nice clean split. If we want to introduce more credentials in the future, it'd be very easy to do that. If we have new presentations in the future, there's a category of documents that family can join. So that's kind of that's my logical, that's how I think of it. I don't know, Brian, if that rhymes for you.
It definitely does. The methodology of the thinking makes a lot of sense. It's when I think you could get to 5 documents from that, and that's where I start to, even though I said 7 is too many here, 5 feels like a lot too. But sort of back to Joe's point, I think the TLS and the mutual TLS piece we could play around with and see if kind of how we feel like treatment is best handled, because it is somewhat different. It is a format and it is a presentation, but it's occurring using a different layer and one that is a little bit more established. I could see arguments for both sort of a 3, 4, and 5 split, depending on how TLS is considered. And
yeah, I think being atomic about it pretty good, right? I can also imagine at some point we might want to add WIT support to TLS, right? So again, having things like that separate might make sense.
yeah, maybe.
I hesitate to speculate too much.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with that too.
Arndt.
Arndt, go ahead.
Yeah. So the MTLS presentation is, if I'm mistaken, 1 or 2 paragraphs in this document. And splitting out 1 or 2 paragraphs into its own document is too much, right? So the split that I proposed was to keep the workload identity certificate and mutual TLS presentation along with the workload identity token in one document, and split out the WIPIT and HTTP message signatures into their own documents, right? Because they have enough content to go into their own documents, right? Of course, from a mathematical, logical point of view, you could split that in any way of small pieces you want, but the process behind it, I don't want to do. And that is just like, I think 3 is the max we should take this, also for the sake of the readers.
Well, RFC 7523, anybody?
But that is a much cleaner split, in my opinion, than what we're doing here.
And
I
sometimes
worry if we're
Got it.
optimizing for work over logical consistency, right?
And
That's-
for we also need to remember we should be optimizing for understandability of the resulting documents, not how much work it is for us. In terms of getting these through the process, like I personally think that it would make sense for these to go through as a cluster. So IESG sees them all at the same time, and we just kind of say like, hey, here's a bunch of things that we organize. It's really all one thing, but we're organizing it in different documents because they're composable, like we did with Jose. I think the assertions framework was separate from Jose, but it similarly went through as a cluster, if I recall. And the OAuth assertions framework, that is. There are mechanisms in the IETF to support this and make it so that a 2-paragraph RFC is not an unreasonable thing. I would also question that it actually is 2 paragraphs and we're not just making a lot of assumptions that TLS is magic. It is magic to me, but there might be different security considerations, for example, something like that. That's a reasonable question for us to ask as a working group as we look at what this work would be. So yeah, we need to optimize for readability. There's no hard and fast rule about what makes sense. Jose was split up into 18 different documents, and Cozy came out as one, and they both have kind of trade-offs. You could argue that both are wrong in their own special ways.
Both are wrong. Choose your wrong.
Yes.
I'm
exactly.
curious about the cluster statement, tell me more about how clusters work in the IETF. Sorry, I'm just curious. Like, are we saying these documents can only be finalized all together? Because in my mind, one of the benefits we get from splitting them is they can move at a different pace.
If we feel like they're all moving at the same pace, then yes, they would all be finalized together, and the RFC editor would basically hold on to all of them so that they can reference each other by RFC number. If they proceed at different paces, then they cannot reference each other all by RFC number, because you can only go towards the final one. And there, of course, with any human-driven process, there are exceptions to this. Lucas and I managed to get cross RFC references for HTTP digests and signatures, even though they didn't go through as a cluster. But that was us saying pretty pleased to the RFC editor at a very late stage of the process to make that happen. We can basically signal, the cluster allows us to signal to the IESG and the RFC editor that we expect all of these to kind of go through at the same time, and makes it a lot easier to do cross-document references and things like that. They all still get reviewed. They all, like, if one document gets hung up, we can decide to drop it from the cluster and say, you know what, we'll do that one later. I I don't remember if we explicitly decided to do that with OAuth MAC tokens, which never ended up getting picked up. But the original intent there was that OAuth core, bearer tokens, and MAC tokens would be 3 separate documents, because you have 1 protocol format for how to get tokens and 2 presentation formats for how you present tokens. And at the end of the day, it turned out to actually just be 1 and 1. So yeah, there's no easy answer.
Okay, and then quick poll again on the.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Clustering just.
Go ahead.
I just want. Are the clustering decisions are decisions that can be made later though? Either way, it's not. Do we have to commit to something now? Okay, that.
Yeah, we don't have to commit to something now. We can basically have an intention, and then if it looks like I'm just, to throw spaghetti at the wall, MTLS is a lot harder than we thought, and this actually needs to be a 40-page document of security considerations, then we can be like, you know what, that can wait. Everything else can go through. Like we are not beholden to this. The process can be very flexible. It's meant to be an optimization for us. And so if it's not optimizing it, then we just don't use that.
Yeah, so let's decouple the decision about whether there's needs to be clustering or not from the split, because I can foresee, because one of my observations, I think, is we're at a point where we're splitting because people aren't necessarily agreeing on a path forward either, right? And so then reintroducing the dependency probably doesn't help anybody later on.
Yeah. So Peter and I will dig through, see what the general feel of it is. Like I've got my general memory of what that thread is, but I need to go read it again in detail. Peter will as well. And then we'll figure out, 1, what the shape of the documents are, and then 2, what do we do with them?
Okay.
But
then,
if the content is ready, like they don't have to sit around for a long time after that to address Arndt's concern.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of sequencing, it feels like the credential formats, right, is sort of the thing that everybody else needs to be able to reference. So that's the thing that needs to be able to go first, if anything.
Right. That's a pretty clear lead. And the biggest question is whether we decouple the presentation from that, either fully or conceptually or what have you.
Right. And then
I'm also getting that feeling. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the other question is in terms of the authorship of the 5 documents, right? I'm curious if the authors have strong preferences for where they would like to spend their energy, or whether we end up with all 5 authors on all 5 documents. Brian, your thoughts?
I figured Brian would just do everything, so I'm not too worried about that. 2, I don't think that that's a decision we need to make on today's call, because we have not made a finalized decision as to what the shape is going to be. So I do not think that we should actually go down that rabbit hole. I also want to note that Joe's been sitting in the queue. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's leftover.
Yeah, it is intentional. I was just
Excellent.
going to comment just to say that I supported Arndt's assertion that probably it's better to put all of the TLS and cert stuff in one draft, just because those 2 things are fairly tightly coupled today and will likely be for some time. Now, it is absolutely true we may do things in the future, but I don't actually think it would help readability. I think it might be confusing for people to have to go to 2 different drafts to go through these 2 things, since usually other uses of TLS, you kind of mention all those things together. That being said, like if the working group wanted to split them up, I think that could be done. It would be a little bit awkward. And really it's kind of we're very, there's a lot of existing practice here. There's edges that aren't defined, but much of it is already defined. It's not like we have to do a lot here. Whereas with the WIT is a completely new thing for the most part. And I think that's a little bit difference there. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks for that perspective, Joseph. Really appreciate that. That's helpful.
All right. Well, I see nobody else in the queue. This has been a good discussion. I think that we've got some pretty clear steps forward. And Peter and I will get back to the group by the end of the week. Also, just noticing now that it's just me and Peter on here, I am apparently the blue shirt chair and Peter's the yellow shirt chair. Never realized that we were doing that. So here we have it. Anyway, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I had since we have a few minutes left, I just wanted to have a quick question, perhaps unrelated to anything was discussed so far.
If it is unrelated, Mark, I am going to cut you off and take away your mic privileges. Please keep it on topic. This is not intended to be a general discussion meeting of the WIMSE working group. I encourage you to put something general forward in our meeting in a few weeks. If it is related, please continue.
Well, I only wanted to understand how we're going to what's the best way to address sending richer metadata in using tokens. Now we talked about like various aspects, but like URIs are short. The amount of information relying party needs to know about the workload may be much bigger than the URI can convey. What's the best way of addressing that issue?
List. I think this is a list discussion.
Yep. 100%.
This is not an existing topic under discussion. Would be kind of a new one, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, list.
That's fine.
You can open any discussion you like on the list.
Okay.
I think and I think you have a better chance of actually getting the right people on the list for the discussion.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Mark. Arndt, go ahead with the same constraints.
I want to thank the chairs for their work and their support of the drafts. Is that related or not?
Now the chairs
Obviously
are
related.
suspicious.
Yes.
Yeah, just thank you for your help and your guidance. And
Yeah, absolutely. We're just here to make sure that the work actually moves forward. And thank you to everybody that's been contributing to the discussions. If you have additional thoughts on the split or not split, please drop them onto that existing thread on the mailing list. If you can't find it, start a new thread, but honestly, that's kind of annoying. Please don't do that. But sorry, it's an option. It's a mailing list. They can do it. Anyway, Peter and I will get back to you guys with the end of the week, and if nothing else, we will see you guys in Montreal. I am still planning to be there in person. Peter is as well, as I understand, and we will see you guys there. Thank you, everybody, for all your hard work.
Thanks, folks.
That's all.